Welcome to Mindset and Metabolism Mastery, a show for women who are tired of feeling hopeless, defeated, and frustrated with their bodies and want to have more energy to show up every day as the best version of themselves. I'm holistic nutrition consultant Shannon Hagel, and I can help you reprogram your brain to create bulletproof consistency with ease and address your personal hormonal imbalances that are leading to weight gain. Life can feel a whole lot better with a body you love, delicious food, and a little wine. And I'm here to help you get there. Ready to lose weight and feel amazing in your body? Let's dive in.
Hi, I'm Megan, one of Shannon's podcast producers. I wanted to let you know that there will be no episode of Mindset and Metabolism Mastery this week, but Shannon will be back next week with a brand new episode. However, if you just can't wait until next week to get your dose of the podcast, why not revisit episode 6, Don't Let Perfectionism and Self-Sabotage Stop You Losing Weight. If, like me, you've spent the first few weeks of the new year being amazing with your nutrition and resisting every urge, yet at the final hurdle having a moment of weakness, because let's face it, January is long, then this episode is absolutely the reminder you need that going off track with your health goals doesn't mean you need to start over from square one. So listen in to learn how to make empowering moves after you've gone off your plan and learn to show yourself compassion and understanding instead of beating yourself up and falling into the cycle of self-sabotage. Enjoy!
Welcome, friends. It has been a busy and chaotic last couple months for me. And in the past, that would have been detrimental to any of my health goals, my wellness goals, any healthy habits that I've been really trying to solidify would go out the window the second life got difficult. And I'll say, even though I am feeling a little stretched thin these days, my cup is so full. I have been doing one-on-one mentorships with a small group of women, some of my graduates from my signature program, the Thrive Formula, over the last 6 weeks. And these conversations, these coaching sessions have really allowed me to deep dive with these women into these self-sabotaging cycles that are stopping them from creating forever change. We are all human. And we all live very human lives that have ups and downs and periods that are slower and periods that feel chaotic and full. And so sometimes, even though we have these well-meaning intentions of staying on track, our goals can really be sidelined by these self-sabotaging patterns and cycles that we end up going through. So today I really want to focus on what to do after a splurge, what to do after you go off the rails. I think there's so much focus that we put onto avoiding going off the rails in the first place, because the second you indulge, the second you overeat, the second you eat something that you promised yourself you were not going to eat, or you miss that workout, the second that happens, our brain has alarm bells saying failure. You screwed it up. All the effort that you've put in up to this point doesn't even matter. You're starting over from square one again. And the problem with putting so much effort into avoiding the blip, avoiding the splurge, and so little time and effort just contemplating on what to do after the splurge is that when it inevitably happens, we're so not equipped to deal with it. So we end up going into this shame spiral, beating ourselves up, telling ourselves that we screwed up, that there's something wrong with us, that we're disgusting, that we can't even stay on track for a frickin' week. And this is really where the self-sabotage starts to kick in. The self-sabotage wasn't necessarily the eating off plan. It's everything that happens afterwards. I used to be deep in this cycle of getting motivated, deciding I'm going to get back on track, have big, audacious health goals that I was going to reach. And so I would make all the plans. I would meal prep. I would clean up my diet. I would say no to the wine. And that might last for a couple of days, a couple of weeks. Where this cycle really became very evident to me was when my kids were babes and they weren't sleeping through the night. And I was deep in this survival mode where we were just trying to make it through the day alive. And I could be good during the day. I could eat the vegetables. I could keep it clean. I could stay away from the chips or the chocolate. But by the end of the day, I was exhausted. completely physically, mentally, emotionally depleted. My willpower had been all used up. So by the time I finally got those kids down to sleep, the talk track would start. The bottle of wine would start to look really good. And I would start to tell myself, it's just one glass. I just need to decompress. I deserve it. I kept those humans alive for one more day. I didn't lose it or enter an insane asylum. We made it. I deserve that glass of wine. And while that's all true, all moms deserve all the things. Actually, scratch that. All women deserve all the things. And while it was true that I did deserve whatever I felt like in the moment, that was not the choice that I wanted to make. I wanted to be able to relax and decompress and reward myself without the wine. Because one glass of wine usually turned into two, and 2 glasses of wine usually meant a bag of chips was going to get opened. And the bag of chips would eventually lead to some chocolate, and on it would go. And while this event, this moment of going off the rails, obviously was not conducive towards my long-term goals of losing weight and being healthy and having lots of energy and all these wonderful things I wanted for myself, the event itself wasn't even the piece that was keeping me from those long-term changes. It was what I did afterwards. After the splurge, the gremlins would come in, the thought gremlins. And these sound kind of like this. What the fuck did you just do? You worked so hard all day to be good, and now you just blew it all. What is wrong with you? You're disgusting. Now, maybe you've experienced similar thoughts, similar patterns in your life. Maybe your thought gremlins are not as mean and cruel as mine were. Maybe they're worse. But whatever form those thought gremlins take place in your brain, this is where the self-sabotage really starts to impact us. Because whatever was happening that led up to that initial splurge was one thing. But these thoughts, these judgments about what just went down, what just took place, opens up this opportunity for so much more off-plan eating, for so much more emotional eating. Think about how you feel after you do something, eat something, or don't do a healthy habit that you had planned to do, that you promised yourself you were going to follow through on this time. What does it feel like in those moments right after you've let yourself down? You do the opposite of what you'd planned to do. It usually feels pretty damn shitty, right? And from this place, nobody makes good decisions. We think that we need to be harder on ourselves, talk meaner to ourselves, be more disciplined. That is not working. This pattern of having a blip and then beating the crap out of yourself only leads to more pain and more desire to mask that pain with things that feel good in the moment. Another glass of wine, some more chips, things that offer us that immediate relief, that immediate dopamine hit. So we don't have to feel so shitty in that moment. So it's the moments after the splurge that really matter. I think one of the most important pieces of creating long-term, sustainable, forever changes, where you're not in this cycle yo-yoing back and forth year after year, month after month, is really changing the expectation of what this should look like. When the goal is perfection, when we believe that for us to be successful, we need to and should show up perfectly, following through on what we said we were going to do every single day. When the goal is perfection, the only chance we have of being successful is dying, truly, because you have your whole life to screw it up. This is something I actually really learned back in my former life when I was an addictions counselor. In the addictions world, it can be a long, painful process of trying and failing before someone is, quote unquote, successful of being clean and sober. And truthfully, they can't know if they were successful at being clean and sober until the last day on earth, because you have your whole life to have a relapse. And so back in my addictions counseling days, we didn't look at success as a lifetime of sobriety. What we really defined success as was lengthening, elongating these periods where you were showing up the way you wanted to and shortening the periods where you were off the rails. And I love that when it comes to all these aspects of our life where we're trying to hit a new goal, create new patterns, really grow and stretch ourselves to become this version of us that's not struggling with our current struggles. If the goal is not perfection, and instead this realization that we are human with human lives, and there may be times on this journey where we have a blip, where we have a splurge, where we have some eating or drinking that we did not plan, that we wish we had not indulged in. If we expect that those times are going to be part of this process, we really take the power away from them. And when we instead focus on elongating the periods in between the splurges and shortening the periods that you spend off track, there's so much more opportunity for success. Think about how that talk track to yourself would change after a splurge from the mindset of, I need to be perfect, I need to show up perfect 100% of the time, versus this is a part of the journey, nothing's gone wrong, and let me learn from it. What I really focus on with my clients that I work with in the Thrive formula is flipping the switch on their mindset from trying to beat themselves into submission into these healthy habits to really becoming curious, to coming from this learner's perspective of understanding that reprogramming our brains, creating these new neural pathways where we do show up for ourselves the way we want to, and it feels easy, requires that we deprogram these old processes of our brain. After a splurge, the most important thing you can do is, first of all, give yourself grace and compassion rather than going down this shame spiral where nothing good is going to come from it. Remembering that you are human and that you have a lizard brain that loves immediate gratification, just like the rest of us, and being open and willing to learning about what just happened, what led to the decisions that you made that you don't love. That's the place that you need to come to in order to make these changes permanent. From that place, you are either winning or you are learning. You're never failing. If I had showed up in those moments when my babes were young, after that first glass of wine that I really didn't want to want so badly, and instead showed up in that moment rather than in defeat and frustration with myself, but from a place of compassion and a willingness to learn, I would be able to reflect on what led up to that moment where I made the decision to have the wine in the first place. What were some of those thoughts? Like I identified earlier, I deserve this. That was such a big one for me. That thought allowed me to take the action that went against my actual long-term goal. And so being in awareness of that allowed me to step back in that moment and think, okay, what went really well here and what didn't go as planned? How can I set myself up for more success tomorrow? And what is available to me to set myself up for that success? Right? Maybe having more sleep would have been absolutely helpful, but maybe that was not available to me at that time. Small kids that didn't sleep through the night. So then what else would be available? Maybe it was incorporating more periods of just rest, not sleep, but just rest throughout that day so I didn't feel so exhausted mentally and emotionally. Maybe it was thinking about other things that I deserve, not just the wine, but what else do I deserve in my life? And how could those actions better support my long-term goals? Now, when I ask myself these questions, when I, instead of judging the decision I just made, that's already now part of the past, I can't undo it. Instead of shaming myself and judging myself, and rather attempting to learn from that situation, I can show up in the very next moment from a very different place. And it's something I'd like to really offer to you. How would your overall journey to forever weight loss, healthy habits, and becoming this version of you that doesn't struggle with the things that you struggle with right now, how would you get there faster and in a more enjoyable way if you decide to break up with this shaming, guilting, beating up on yourself, and instead came from that learner's perspective, being willing to be the detective, accepting and expecting that you're going to have moments that are not perfect, and they don't mean anything about you or your ability to be successful long term. They simply mean that you're human. And the most amazing thing about being human, we have the power to reflect and learn from our past experiences rather than just recycling the old stories and the old patterns over and over. So I really invite you, especially as we come into this holiday season where there's plenty of opportunity for temptation, for emotional eating, for celebratory connection eating, to go into these next 4 weeks really committed to learning from these splurges rather than allowing them to fuel the fire of emotional eating. It's not the splurge itself that prevents you from getting to your goal. It is every single moment afterwards. And the wonderful thing is those moments have endless opportunity. I want to give a big shout out to everyone who has rated and reviewed and listened and shared the podcast. Your support has been so incredible and has been so helpful in helping other women who are really struggling and feeling stuck in their bodies to find us and get support. So I want to announce the grand prize winner of our podcast launch giveaway. And that was for an Orion infrared and red light lamp. And the winner is Amanda D. I'm going to keep her last name private, but you know who you are, Amanda. We've reached out to you. I believe she's already received her infrared light and is ready to dive in and start using it today, which is very, very exciting. Congratulations, Amanda. We are so excited for you. All right, friends, I will see you in next week's episode. You have a beautiful rest of your day. If you enjoyed today's show and don't want to worry about missing an episode, you can follow the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you haven't already, I would really appreciate it if you could share the podcast with others who you think might benefit from it and leave a rating and review to let me know what you think. It doesn't have to be a 5-star rating, although I sure hope that you love the show. I want your honest feedback so I can create an awesome podcast that provides tons of value. Visit www.thrivefromtheinside.com/podcast launch for step-by-step instructions on how to follow, rate, and review. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Mindset and Metabolism Mastery. If you want to learn more about balancing your hormones, repairing your metabolism, and losing weight with empowerment and ease, visit www.thrivefromtheinside.com. I'll see you next time.